The film begins in a dense forest, where a man with his face and clothes dirty and bloodied carries in his arms an unconscious child who appears to be his daughter. They arrive at a large house, and he places her on the sofa while he recovers from exhaustion at a large office table. Suddenly, the child wakes up and begins to call for her father. After hearing screams from his wife, he calls out the name Christine and then runs out to check what is happening. The scene then appears to cut back some time into the past, where in the same room a friendly woman accompanies the man and kindly asks him to sit at the table. The woman begins the conversation with the young man, whom we learn is called Dr. Michael, and who had recently moved from the city of Manhattan to Ashboro. Michael says the move was made thinking about what was best for his family. The woman says that the sudden death of her husband would not be easy to deal with, hence the family's mansion was put up for sale. Michael asks what happened, and Mrs. Ferris says her husband died due to an attack by a rabid dog when he went out for a walk near the barn at the back of the house, but that he need not worry because the dog had already been captured and removed from the place. They close the deal, and Michael buys the house. Ferris then says that Michael and his family will certainly be very happy in the town, and that the inhabitants will soon get used to them. Michael finds it odd, and the woman adds that because it is a small town, the residents are not so used to the people from the big city. In the couple's former residence, Michael's wife finishes packing things for the move. She takes a picture frame with the photo of a girl who looks like her, and after admiring it briefly, she puts it aside and continues organizing. Michael arrives home with daughter Jessica and the dog Paige. He notices that Christine seems emotional and asks Jessica to go to the room to finish organizing things and goes to speak with his wife. He asks if everything is all right with the move and if this is really what Christine wants, and she replies that she is just a little scared due to the big change happening in their lives. The next morning, the family drives to their new home. Arriving near the town entrance, it is possible to see there is no cell signal. Quite excited by the local scenery, they arrive at the new residence. Paige and Jessica run across the large lawn of the house. The dog then appears restless and frightened when approaching the old barn at the back of the residence, as if something is drawing its attention. Jessica says she does not feel very well and wants to go back home. Michael immediately says this is their new home and comforts the girl, but suddenly Jessica ends up vomiting on her father, who is startled and steps on a large nail that was nearby in the lawn. Christine and Michael laugh at the situation. Michael goes to the car to look for the house keys, and his wife tells him to change the dirty pants before entering the house. He begins to take off his pants right there, but is soon interrupted by a visit from their neighbors, Phil and Tyler Dayton, grandfather and grandson. Tyler returns the family's dog that had escaped into the street, and Phil invites everyone to lunch at his house across the street. Arriving at Phil's house, he indicates to Michael that the bathroom is upstairs at the door on the left. Michael then goes upstairs and upon entering notices that actually the bathroom is inside a bedroom. He sees someone sleeping and tries to pass to the bathroom without making noise. Michael begins to change and tend to the wound on his foot when, through the slightly open door, he notices something happened in the room. After bandaging the wounds, he leaves the bathroom and finds a woman with scars on her face standing at the window. He approaches to apologize for entering the room. The woman then tells Michael that he will not be able to help her. Michael then leaves the room and checks the other door in the corridor and observes that that was a more accessible bathroom, becoming confused about why the host indicated the wrong door. Joining the others, Michael learns that the community plans a celebration for his family. Phil mentions that his wife, possibly with cancer, will be Michael's patient. Christine sees a photo, and Tyler confirms it is his mother who died the previous year. Michael says he is waiting for the moving truck, so he says goodbye. On leaving, Michael asks for contact for someone who can fix the gas installation and cable TV. Phil gives the contact for the gas, but informs that in the town there is no cable signal because the place is about community, but that the library has a good collection of videotapes. At home, the couple play looking at some photos, and upon hearing a church bell ring, he asks Christine what was happening. She then explains that Phil informed her about a curfew that exists in the place from 8 o'clock at night. While they have a glass of wine to celebrate the new house, Michael tells his wife that he thinks Phil wanted him to enter his wife's room to see her, and that he does not know what could have caused Phil's wife's scars. Christine quickly interrupts him and says they need to talk about another subject. Michael, already knowing it is a proposal to have a new child, simply says yes, but that they should wait a while to settle better in the town, leaving his wife very happy with the news. Later, unable to sleep, Michael goes to his daughter's room and gives her a kiss. He goes to the room that will be his office, still disorganized. He drinks whiskey, looks at documents on a shelf, picks up a file of Rosie Dayton, but gives up reading. The next morning, Michael does some repairs around the house while his wife and daughter go out for a walk. While Michael takes a coffee break, the doorbell rings and he sees a large package at the entrance. On the big box, there is a small note reading, "Neil, good luck," written by someone named Zach. Inside the box, there is styrofoam containing several test tubes. These tubes seem to contain samples of various highly contagious diseases, such as Ebola and the bubonic plague. Michael is alarmed when he realizes what it is, and when Jessica suddenly approaches, he quickly stores them in a cold chamber he has, afraid of an accident happening. At night, the family falls asleep while watching one of the videotapes. We can see a shadow walking through the rooms of the house, stalking the family. When the same passes through the living room, Michael wakes from his sleep but notices nothing. The next day, Dr. Michael starts appointments in his new office, calling Lauren Hunter for a consultation. He jokes about the pattern of appointments, and Lauren replies that everyone wants to visit the new doctor. Michael checks Lauren's heartbeat, who looks at him strangely. At the end of the day, Michael spends time painting with Jessica, who at one point paints some yellow circles next to the drawing of a house. Michael asks what that is, and the girl then asks her father if ghosts are real. Michael then questions the reason for that sudden question, and Jessica says it is because they watched tapes of a cartoon. He says ghosts do not exist, but the girl says she sees them at night in her room. The father then says nothing bad will happen to her while he is around. The next day, Michael decides to take a walk around the property, but is soon approached by Phil, who accompanies him, saying there is a place he would like to show him. They arrive at a clearing containing some stacked stones like a large table, surrounded by other stones that form a circle. Phil then tells the story that there are a wild people, called the Isolated, who lived in the place in isolation. They began to hunt and multiply, threatening the town's population. To keep their families safe, the population began to make animal sacrifices for the isolated in that place. Phil then says that from that moment, Michael must follow that tradition, bringing live animals and sacrificing them at the site. Perplexed by what he has just heard, Michael says that it is all folklore, but Phil soon replies that they are legends and that they are never lost. At night, Michael performs some laboratory analyses in his office, and upon hearing the curfew bell, cleans the bench and watches the family playing with Paige in the yard. In the forest, it is possible to perceive a pair of glowing eyes watching them. The next day, at the town chapel, the Cales participate in an event. Dr. Michael tries to avoid consultations while the women talk with his wife. He notices a strange woman, Mrs. Zealous, descendant of the town founders, whom Tyler describes as controlling. Tyler asks if Michael does not trust her and says he should not, but is soon interrupted by AJ, the sheriff's son, who quickly pulls him away from the doctor as if he were doing something wrong. Michael, worried about his wife, does not pay much attention and heads into the chapel where they took Christine. Arriving there, he finds no one except Lauren, who tries to seduce him. Realizing Michael has no interest, she desperately says he can help and protect her, but when asked by Michael what the problem is, Lauren tries to disguise it, saying it is nothing. Michael leaves and finds his wife outside the chapel. She seems worried and says she discovered that Mrs. Zealous's daughter died. At night, Michael looks for his wife, Christine, who says she went to the bathroom. He mentions noises coming from below, but she reassures him. When they lie down, Christine seems uncomfortable with Michael's touch, and her slippers are dirty with mud, suggesting she went out of the house. The next morning, Christine and Jessica leave by car with one of the women they met at the event, while Michael stays home and prepares to take a shower. He then hears a noise in his office and decides to investigate. Arriving there, he sees that one of his medicine cases is on the floor. He picks up the case, but notices something passing quickly through the kitchen. He checks the entire place but finds nothing except the back door open. He then locks the door, confused by what happened. That night, he carries his daughter in his arms to the bedroom. When switching on the light, he notices something moving among the girl's stuffed animals. Michael then bends down to check under the bed, but does not notice a figure with a deformed and frightening face watching him through the window. He then closes the window without noticing the danger and goes down to the kitchen. He talks to his wife about being worried that their daughter is afraid to sleep in the room and that something is stressing her. Christine then interrupts, announcing she is pregnant, which greatly delights Michael, who asks if she visited the obstetrician to learn the news. She says she visited the local midwife, Mrs. Zealous. Michael is bothered by the information, but Christine says she does not want to discuss the choice she made. The next night, it rains. Michael works in his office. Christine asks for his help with Jessica's homework. He promises to go as soon as he finishes, but Christine criticizes his overworking, reminding him of the reason for the move. They reconcile. Later, Michael goes to his bedroom, but sees that Jessica is sleeping with her mother and decides to sleep on the living room sofa. He gets comfortable and then Christine appears, kissing him and straddling her husband, initiating sex. Michael looks up and suddenly the house setting is replaced by the dark night of the forest, and in place of Christine is Lauren, who asks for his help, making him wake from this terrifying dream. Michael hears footsteps coming from the barn and decides to investigate. With a lantern in hand, he opens the door and enters carefully. He reaches for a wrench he wields as a form of protection. Suddenly, the door slams and he startles. Inside the barn was a small goat that runs toward the exit, but by reflex, Michael strikes the animal with a precise blow to the head, killing it instantly. Michael then goes to the garage to fetch a trash bag to discard the animal's body, but upon returning to the barn finds only a trail of blood on the floor, as if the animal's body had been dragged out of place. In the morning, Christine dresses with Jessica to go to church, and Michael says she has been spending a lot of time there lately, not helping him in the office. She says she will help him soon, as she had already confirmed with the church people. He asks if she heard any noise the previous night, but Christine says she heard nothing. Michael prepares to start the day's appointments and sees there is only one scheduled consultation. He checks that there is no one in the waiting room and that on the answering machine, all patients requested to postpone consultations. He then goes to the barn again to fetch the bag he left and puts it back in his garage. Leaving the place, Michael is startled to see Lauren with her abdomen open and completely bloodied, walking with extreme difficulty in his direction. He picks her up and asks what happened. Lauren only replies that it was the isolated and then speaks the name Catherine before dying right there. Michael runs to the office to call for help by phone, but receives no response, and upon returning to Lauren's body, finds nothing but blood. Michael goes to the station to seek help and reports Lauren's death, but the sheriff does not seem to believe him or care about the situation. He leaves outraged by the sheriff's attitude, saying he will investigate on his own. When trying to leave, his car does not start. He checks the engine but finds nothing. As soon as he closes the hood, the town mechanic appears to offer his services. Irritated with the whole situation, he only asks that the mechanic tow his car. He walks down the street and sights a commotion at one of the town intersections. Approaching, he sees it is Lauren's body causing the tumult. He tries to get closer to the body, but Tyler prevents him, saying there are rules in the place. Then some men take Lauren's body and carry it away somewhere. AJ stares at Michael fixedly, as if the doctor is linked to the death. Arriving home, Michael calls Phil asking him to explain what is happening, but the man only answers that he cannot talk to him about what occurred. Michael then takes his black light to check the bloodstains on the sidewalk where Lauren's body was. Back in the office, Michael turns on the light and handprint stains appear on the armchair, spreading through the house. He follows them to Jessica's room, where he finds a handprint on his daughter's face. He then immediately goes down and calls to request a taxi to escape that place with the family, but the operator says they do not serve that area. Desperate, Michael tries to access the computer but has no internet access, when suddenly Mrs. Zealous appears in his office saying they do not have much time. He asks how she entered his house, to which she only replies that they are coming after the doctor. She says they have a patient with a baby about to be born and that Michael needs to help her deliver, since he did not perform the sacrifice mentioned by Phil earlier. He asks who she is, and the woman answers she is a zealous, and that she speaks for the creatures, and asks Michael not to resist. Suddenly, several people with cadaverous faces and glowing eyes appear. Their bodies are covered by a kind of dust, and they behave like wild animals in their way of walking and acting, but seem to have a certain organization. Zealous and the creatures lead Michael to the entrance of a tunnel, where Zealous says he must help them with a disease they do not yet know. Then the creatures begin to guide the doctor deeper through the tunnel. He reaches an opening where more of the isolated gather around him, seeming curious about the doctor's presence. Then one of the female creatures hands Michael his briefcase that had disappeared. He comes to another opening where one of the creatures that is pregnant appears to be in labor. Even without all the necessary tools, Michael begins the cesarean procedure, applying anesthesia to the creature and making an incision in her abdomen. He completes the procedure successfully, being carried away afterwards by the creatures. Suddenly, Michael is awakened by his daughter's voice calling him. He is on his couch, with white marks and dirt all over his body. After cleaning himself, Michael goes to Phil's house to talk. There, he finds Phil and Tyler. Tyler gets upset, but Phil asks him to turn on the lawnmower so they can talk without the creatures hearing. Phil reveals he tried to warn Michael about the place by sending him to his wife's room, Rosie. He explains there is no way to escape because the creatures dominate everything and took Rosie, leaving only her eyeballs in bed. Walking through town, Michael finds Joanna's husband and asks how her pregnancy is. He then replies that his wife was not pregnant and leaves upset. Michael waits at home for his wife to arrive. He tries to talk to her about the whole situation of the place, but she firmly refuses and slaps him for insisting on the questions. She then says it is time for him to take Paige for a walk, implying that the dog will be the next sacrifice for the isolated. Jessica sees her father leaving with Paige and ends up following them. At night, at the sacrificial stone, Michael tries to strike the dog with a hammer, but Jessica shows up in time, causing Michael to miss the blow and accidentally release Paige. The isolated then begin to approach the girl, so he quickly takes her back home. Michael begins to reinforce the doors and windows of the house in an attempt to protect himself from the creatures. The family tries to follow a basic routine amid the chaos of that place. The next night, after another nightmare with Lauren and the isolated, one of the creatures invades his house, taking him to the tunnels again, this time to help the previous creature with the surgical wounds that seem not to have healed. Despite Michael's attempts, the creature dies, and then the other creatures begin to devour it there, making him vomit. They drag Michael outside, and he then sees that Phil was captured. Phil says they heard his conversation. The isolated want Michael to kill Phil there and show Jessica's teddy bear to force him to do it. Phil only asks that he protect Tyler, and Michael apologizes before landing a deadly blow to his head. Back home, Michael returns his daughter's teddy bear and falls asleep watching her in her room. In the morning, Michael finds Tyler with his grandfather's eyes. Tyler reveals that Zealous is half isolated and asks for help to fight the creatures. Michael initially refuses, but later convinces him with a note, making Tyler change his mind about leaving town. Back at home, Michael packs the family's things and puts everyone in the car, intending to flee the town. In the middle of the road, they are stopped by the sheriff, who calls Michael to talk beside the car. Suddenly, screams from Tyler are heard in the forest, all part of a plan to distract the sheriff. Christine then starts the car and accelerates toward the sheriff, who manages to swerve from the charge. The family flees and arrives at the place where Tyler's screams came from. Michael sees Tyler's backpack on the ground and enters the house to look for him. Michael enters the silent house and hears Tyler in the basement. He finds Tyler being tortured by Zealous, intervenes to free him, and they flee. Zealous shouts something strange, and the creatures attack the family's car outside. Michael and Tyler begin to fight the creatures. One of them manages to open the car door, but Tyler soon cuts its throat. They speed away in terror. They try to escape over the bridge, but the sheriff closed the passage, so they deviate from the route, but soon crash the car into a fallen tree on the road. They try to return home carrying the body of one of the creatures, but upon arrival, Tyler is attacked and devoured by the isolated. Michael takes the creature's body to his office to investigate a way to amplify the infection they possess as an attempt to end the isolated. Michael tends his wife in bed while Jessica plays with her bear near the door. The door then slowly opens, and one of the creatures grabs Jessica. Michael mixes more of the disease samples he has of highly infectious viruses and heads to the creature's lair. Arriving there, One of the creatures is agonizing on the ground, so he begins the plan to inject the pathogens into the creature, but as always, the isolated accompanying him asks that he insert the needle into his own arm before injecting the creature. Michael does so and is soon taken outside. He then hears his daughter's voice and goes looking for her. He finds her and gives her a medicine before fainting. Still weak from the injection's effect, Michael watches some of the isolated crawling toward him, agonizing and dying slowly with yellowed mouths. Before leaving the place, he vents all his anger on one of the infected, beating it to death. They escape the lair, and we return to the film's initial scene with father and daughter arriving home, and Christine's screams heard in the room. He runs there and finds his wife in labor, accompanied by Zealous, the sheriff, and his sons. Christine apologizes to Michael for bringing him to that place. Confused by his wife's words, Michael watches her give birth to a child resembling the creatures and goes into shock. Zealous, with the child in her arms, says it will soon speak for them, and the young men knock Michael unconscious. Upon waking, everyone is gone, leaving only the house's mess. Michael screams for his wife and daughter, but no one answers. He then finds the picture frame with his wife's childhood photo broken on the floor, and then a disturbing revelation occurs. In the image, there is a mailbox with the name Zealous written on it, indicating that his wife was always a descendant of the isolated.